All right, Vanessa, I am going to make you a cocktail to start. Sound good?
Yes.
And I have it on good authority you like gin.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to use a little bit of Ford's gin, which is, listen, it's a nice gin. It's not top tier, top shelf necessarily, but it does the job for this drink. And I don't think, because we were talking before, I don't think you've ever had Saint Germain before.
No.
Okay, it's a little elderflower liquor. It's nice, but we use only about a half ounce because it's meant to be a supportive flavor, not like a main player, okay? And what we're going to do is add a very small amount of cranberry juice to that, mostly, believe it or not, for color more than anything. So I'd say about 1/4 ounce of that. And then the juice of 1/2 of a lime. And I don't know about you and what your cocktail preferences are, but if you're going to use juice, use the real stuff. Is that something you relate to?
Yes.
Because I know gimlets are your thing usually,
Yes.
right? This, by the way, is like a gimlet on steroids. So I think you're going to like it. But we got the juice of 1/2 of one lime in there, okay? There's ice already in the shaker. So all we're going to do is give this a little shake. Okay? And now we're going to strain it into a nice champagne flute. And why, Vanessa, are we straining it into a champagne flute? Because we're going to add a little champagne.
No.
There you go.
I just like to be fancy.
Well, fancy is for sure. By the way, look at the cranberry juice. It's meant just to color. This drink, I often call it a pink lady, and that's why. So the cranberry doesn't add a big texture or flavor, just a little color, okay? And then La Marca Prosecco is my favorite for this. So we're going to top it up. There you go. Now, if I was being very bougie, I would put a little edible flower in there, or perhaps a single frozen berry. But I'm choosing not to be bougie. I'm choosing just to give you this drink as is. Perfect. So there you are, love. You can tell me how that tastes.
Oh, that's good.
Gimlet-like?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little extra nuance or
Pink
flavor.
lady.
Pink lady. There you go.
Love it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm excited to talk to you. I can see on your face a little nervous.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because this is a big deal, right? This is
It
a big
is.
deal. And everyone watching, listening right now has no idea why it's a big deal. But we do. So I'm gonna share my side of the story. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'd say a couple of years ago is when you and I first met, but it was digitally. Right? It wasn't until today we met for the very first time.
Yeah.
In person. But I was consulting for a company, you started consulting for the same company, and we had a mutual friend, Samantha Hardy, right? Ex-Army, former Army.
Yes,
right?
ex-Army. Yeah.
Same as Sam, right? That's
same as
right. And I got to know you through that company, I mean, at a distance. You were involved in some of the calls. I do consulting, calls on efficiency and productivity. You were involved in some of those. I always adored you. We didn't know each other that well necessarily, right? So now we're going to backtrack from today. We're going to backtrack just over a year. I got a message from Samantha Hardy on Facebook. And it said to me, it was very, very obscure. It was no detail at all. She said something to the effect of, listen, Vanessa is having some troubles right now. And I've told her that she should probably reach out to you. I just wanted you to know. And I didn't know what, were the troubles financial? I mean, were they health? I had no idea, right? So I got back to Sam and I said, yeah, of course. Like, I love Vanessa. She can reach out to me anytime, right? And I actually think it was the very next day that you sent me a message. And I don't know if I've ever told you this before. When I read your message, I went from a moment of stunned to a few tears, back to stunned, and then back to a few tears. Because it's a big story. It's a big story. And I want to say this so you don't have to. There are some legal ramifications involved. So, you have to be mindful of how much you tell and what you're able to tell. But you've got permissions for certain things, right?
Sure.
So that's my part of it. And then you and I spoke, I think, you were in Africa at the time. Yeah. You and I spoke on Zoom. It was maybe 3 days after you initially messaged me. And that's where our journey starts together, right? And it's brought us to this point. So what, you lead me, what part of that journey do you want to start from with respect to your story?
So I called you almost exactly 2 weeks after the biggest moment of my life.
Yeah.
So that's how close you were to boom, at least for me.
Yeah.
Man, saying it out loud, it almost feels like I'm talking about a different person that it happens to.
Like a book or a movie.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But yeah, so 2 weeks before, actually, this Sunday will mark 1 year since my husband physically, pretty brutally assaulted me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I told, my daughters is it was the first time, but it was bad.
Yeah.
Can't talk about most of the stuff leading up to it. But what resulted from that night and that event was a head laceration, concussion, vision loss, severe bruising over my body that took about 3 weeks to heal. So I couldn't.
The physical end.
The physical, the physical bruises on my my body to heal. Found out later that I had cracked a molar that had an infection. So getting an emergency root canal in another country, and then having to get it, completed in the U.S. So there was a lot of physical things that happened. I was hospitalized for 2 days.
Yep.
He had left the country within 24 hours of the event happening.
On purpose?
Yes.
Or do you know factually?
Yes.
On purpose?
Because of the circumstances of who we work for. So it was kind of a procedural thing that needed to happen. Yeah. So it left me in another country, separated from family and everyone. It's about a 9-hour time difference.
Yeah.
Trying to heal and trying to figure out what was going on. So I was hospitalized for 2 days. I had to be put into a hotel for a week because it took them a week to go through my apartment, which was considered a crime scene. And they wanted to make sure that they were able to get somebody in the apartment to clean the blood before I walked back in.
Yeah.
So that 2-week time frame, I had been bounced around. They gave me to different counselors, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, had to be 4 or 5 different people. And all they were doing is having me just retell my story everywhere.
Yeah.
I know the space that you'd worked in, and I felt very comfortable with you. I reached out to Sam, and I was like, I initially honestly just reached out for some contacts or who do you know that can help me get me through this transition while I'm being bounced around with people, because I know that there was a lot of unknowns of what was going to happen to me, because my living in that country was conditional based off my sponsorship.
Right.
So my work visa essentially was attached to my spouse being there. If that wasn't happening, I knew there was a lot of things coming my way and I didn't know how to handle. So that's when I reached out to you I need help, and working with you, and was more, you give people tools versus what the options were out there for me. Was listen, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that sounds horrible.
And that's what you were experiencing with the other counselors.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately is a little bit very typical in that space. Yeah.
So that's when I reached out to Sam and I was like, do you think Brian would? He's just like, absolutely. Yeah. And literally about exactly 2 weeks is when I reached out to you.
Wow. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the employer, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm just marking my own territory on where I'm allowed to go and not go. But I'll never forget the message in our first call. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, I want to thank you for something. It's rare, very rare, that you go through life and somebody goes through, is it fair to say, the most traumatic event they've ever experienced?
Yeah.
And one of the first names they think of to reach out to is you. That means a lot. It means a lot to me. It's meant more to me than you could possibly imagine ever since. But I remember the time we spoke 2 weeks after. And you know what I was gripped by? Your strength. That was the first thing I noticed. You might not remember the specifics of that call for a lot of reasons. A little concussed and a little post-traumatic. I was observing for everything. Because if you're asking me to help, I want to be able to help in the best way I can. So I'm observing for, what do the concussion symptoms present as, and how fragile is her anxiety right now? I'm not judging you. I just need to know so I can prescribe the best possible things. So you might not remember to the same level I do, but you know what? One of the first things, when we got on Zoom, you were smiling. And you started cracking jokes. Not about the incident, just jokes.
Yeah.
And it didn't come off as repressing or ignoring, it came off as strength. And that's the thing I noticed the most. And I think, there's a million reasons why I want to talk to you today, but I think that might be one of them. Yeah. If I were to really just digest my own thoughts and motivators as to why I asked you to come here today and have a little gin with me and talk about this. And I think your strength was so impressive that day, and it's been nothing but impressive ever since. And I've said to you quietly, even today before we started rolling, I said, this is going to change a lot of people's lives, hearing your story. And I think that's one of the first bookmarks I want to put into the universe for people to note is you came into this situation with a lot of strength, even though somebody had tried very hard to take your power away. Is that a fair way of expressing it?
Yeah.
What gave you that strength? Do you know?
I want to say part of it was just maybe military and having had some level of PTSD already.
Sure. Yeah.
And knowing that when bad things happen, I don't have the choice or option sometimes to curl up in a ball. It's all right, what's the next thing we got to do?
Yeah.
And what's the next thing that we got to do? Yeah. And for me, it was, okay, I need to heal, but I need to dig myself out. And I can't wait to dig myself out until I'm finished healing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to do both of those at the same time.
Yeah.
And the help that I was asking for, or the help that was being thrust upon me by all good intentions, were very superficial level.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were trying to prescribe me things.
Yeah.
And I knew that wasn't what I needed to do. And so I think I've just been pre-wired to just like, all right, well, it's time to, lace up the shoes and, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And what's been an unhealthy version of me dealing with PTSD from the military side is do what's next, shove that stuff to the side.
The healing part.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was been the do what's next, shove this stuff to the side.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, things that I've heard you talk about through, our working together and our interactions was, here's the steps and here's the things to do both.
Yeah.
And I knew that's what I needed, and I knew I needed help.
Yeah.
So I called in my village. So congratulations, you were you're in my village.
Listen, greatest honor of my life. Truly, greatest honor. You said so much that I thought was profound. And yes, people, generally speaking, put the healing over there. We'll unpack that a different day. Yeah. And that day never comes. And we become bound to that, non-healed issues or issue forever. And that starts to, chip away at our self-confidence, self-worth, our behaviors, our habits, etc. So you knew innately that both had to come into play. But as you're saying all that, and I'm remembering now more and more detail, you were very what's next. Yeah. But not at all. Like I didn't think you were at the expense of the healing journey. I just remember you telling me, okay, passport and papers, okay, they can't be factored in right now because of this situation, so I got to go this way instead. And you were very matter of fact and organized as to what was next. Did you feel organized?
No.
I think I knew the answer you're going to give, and that's why I wanted to hear you say it, because I don't want anyone watching and listening to confuse strength with certainty. You weren't certain.
No. So there was a lot of logistical things that had to happen because there was, some of my documents were destroyed that made it difficult to leave a country and clearing customs and immigration. So that part had to be ironed out. The sponsorship that I was under couldn't make a decision whether I could stay because I was working.
Yeah.
I had a paycheck, or if I had to leave. So I didn't know if there was a time limit of when that had to happen, but I knew that I was going to eventually have to leave. I didn't know whether it was 3 weeks or 3 months, but I knew that came with things that had to get done to make sure that, I saw my kids for Christmas. Yeah. I have a way to make money because I knew I was going to lose my job.
Right.
Which is an unfortunate thing about my situation that,
I could write a book about how pissed off that makes me.
Yeah.
That you were forced out of the job because of something out of your hands completely.
Yeah. And that was the advocating for myself at every corner of, when domestic violence happens, that's hard enough to deal with. But now you must leave the country. You will lose employment. And there's no guarantee on who's going to catch you on the other side financially. So that made this situation a lot more complicated where I didn't have the luxury just to heal. I had to figure out logistically where I was going to land in a matter of weeks.
It was a very short amount of time.
And I don't think I told you this. So I was hospitalized on a Monday. Well, Sunday night, hospitalized Monday, Tuesday-ish. Well, okay, so I was hospitalized for 2 days, and then I was in the hotel. On that Friday, less than a week, I get a call from one of the supervisors of my husband, and they're like, so what furniture do you want to keep, and what furniture do you want sent forward? I still didn't have my vision back. Still had symptoms of my concussion. I had yet to talk to any counselor at that point, and I'm being asked. So the sense of urgency that you felt that I was talking to you with the list is because it was kind of asked of me very early on. Yeah. Okay, this sucks, it happens. Do you want to keep your couches, the TVs, or the master bedroom? And I'm like...
It must have felt surreal.
Yeah, on top of understanding that I'm also mourning a marriage.
Of course.
And a relationship. That's the other underlying thing that I didn't expect to have to face with all of this is it's easy to say, oh, we're just angry this happened. But like now adding all that, so the only thing I could control is the lists, but I didn't know what those lists led to, and I didn't know what was certain or not certain. So I know I would word vomit, like, here's everything I think I have to do. Yeah. I don't know how to organize it.
Yeah. But. I mean, I remember so many of our conversations, because we spoke a lot early on.
I went through our messages.
Lots of messages, lots of Zooms. Very, very important, of course. But even I remember almost daily thinking, like, what the fuck next is this woman going to have to deal with? Because obviously the incident itself, and then, I mean, of course I realized it, but you made me realize it on such a deeper level when I think it was our second or third time we spoke on Zoom. You talked about, like, I have to reconcile that, like, my marriage is over. I was like, holy fuck, I never even thought of that. Like, it never factored into the equation for me. And then your kids are stateside. Yeah. You got to come back here. Oh, by the way, you don't have a job. Or a way to pay for anything. Severance. I mean, there's you don't realize, like, when people say I have no money, like, you had no money, right? And no job.
Yeah, lost my job, and then within 2 weeks, he had coordinated to move all the vehicles in the States. So I came back with no car, no job, no place to live. Yeah. Luckily, I had people that really did support me. Yeah. But it's that. I think that's what caught me the most off guard is which I didn't feel until a few weeks later, the mourning of not even just my marriage, but my family.
Yeah.
We had 2 stepkids, or he has 2. He has 3 kids. 2 of them I pretty much raised for the past like 7 years.
Yeah.
Who I consider my kids. So just
Yeah.
mourning that whole family unit. I didn't get the chance to do that until way later on. I'm still mourning that.
Yeah. How could you not?
Yeah.
How could you not?
And that's, yeah. There's a lot of new things I didn't realize I would have to work through emotionally with this whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. That was an exhausted exhale. I don't, listen, I'm going to ask a few questions, and they're not meant to be provocative, but they might provoke.
Okay.
You mentioned a few moments ago, this coming Sunday is 1 year. When you think about that day or the couple weeks after that day, and you think about right now, I'm not asking you to see it from then. I'm asking you to see it from today. Do you see how far you've come?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you are employed now.
Yes.
Very happily employed.
It's the job I went to school for,
Yeah.
and I love my job.
You got a promotion recently.
I did.
So you're making good money.
Yes.
In a good place, a good, safe, happy environment. Do you think that's accidental happenstance? Or do you think there's part of you that created that? You can be modest, but you know where I'm going with this.
I can't take full credit, but I know I did the things
Yes, you did.
with the tools of people to help me.
Yes, you did.
So I know when people are like, well, look at where you're at now. And I was like, the amount of work to get here and the support, there's no way I could have done this on my own.
Yeah.
At all. I am in a job that I love, and I did get a supervisor position as of like two months ago in the same agency, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
But I was on my way here reflecting back just like on this year on where I was and where I'm at now, and my Uber driver.
Yeah, on the way to the studio,
my
right?
Uber driver on the way here. He just looks back at me. We didn't talk for, it's a 14-minute drive. And he's like, what advice for life would you give? And I was just like, oh God, did Brian call him?
Set her up.
Is this the prep? I was like, okay, this is the warm up. No, I was like, find the opportunity where you can. Even though you don't want to, find someone to help you find that opportunity where you can.
Yeah.
And
that's beautiful.
For me, it was my best friend, it was you, it was my family, it was my parents, and it was every day of what am I doing? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to do was work on my resume.
Right.
Or figure out what job I was going to need to do. But it was like, you don't need to do this for you now. You need to do this for 4 months from now,
That's so well said.
So, and I think I messaged you. I was like, right before I walked into my job interview, I was like, all right, I need to show up for March Vanessa.
Yeah. Right.
Although I don't want to right now.
Yeah.
And I'm jet lagged. I need to show up for my future me, because that's the goal, even though I don't feel like it.
Yeah. I think, I don't know where this conversation is going to go today, but at some point I was probably going to either ask you or tell you what I've heard you say. Here are the 3 lessons that I think profoundly you've employed incredibly in this journey, in this story of yours. But that's one of them. That sometimes the only thing you've got is to show up for where you're going, not where you are. Yeah. And that's not easy at all, as you've experienced.
Yeah.
But there are things we can do along the way to make it more palatable. And I'm thinking of something right now. Because I remember when you got back stateside, I think you were living with, if I'm not mistaken, your parents for a brief bit of time, if I'm not mistaken.
I initially went to stay with my stepkids in a rental home that me and my soon-to-be ex-husband own.
Yeah.
But within 30 minutes of me arriving, he started calling the kids to FaceTime them.
God, that's
to,
right.
hey, show me the fire alarm, show me to see if I was there.
Yeah.
So me landing from a 30-something hour flight. That was my plan, to stay with them.
Yep.
And within like 3 hours, it was an unsafe place for me to be.
Yeah.
So then I pivoted and asked my parents, hey, can I crash?
Yeah.
For undetermined amount of time.
Yeah. Do you remember our game plan when you were crashing your parents?
Yes.
You hated every second of it.
I hated it.
You did it begrudgingly. And I'll tell everyone watching and listening right now. I said to you, we need a morning plan. Mm-hmm. Every morning we wake up, this is what we're going to do, and this is the order we're going to do it in. Mm-hmm. You hated that. And then every night I said, you've got to message me what your one win was from today. Mm-hmm. I don't need 3, although you can give me 3. Yeah. I need 1. What was the win from today?
Yeah.
You hated that. But you played. You
I
played. Mm-hmm. And look, I wasn't looking for perfection. Mm-hmm. I was looking for progress.
Yeah.
And there were some days where you're like, I know what the fuck I was supposed to do this morning. I did not do it. And I said, that's okay. It's all good. But I even remember some of our morning intention is that it was a wake up. You were going to go, I believe, you're going to grab some breakfast, go to the gym, come back and journal.
Yes.
You're going to start sending me excerpts of your journal, mm-hmm. not because I wanted to be accountable or wanted to make sure you were doing it, because I wanted you to be able to share vulnerably with what you were thinking and feeling. Mm-hmm. I still remember that. And some days you did that and some days you didn't, but I always told you that, listen, when we go for any length of time with having no purpose, we start to die. And so one of the easiest, most valuable ways to instill some purpose into us is to have a morning plan. Mm-hmm. This is what we do, and these are all things for me. Mm-hmm. They're not for my kids, they're not for my parents, they're not for my friends, they're for me. Yeah. You hated it. But I want to say you were 75 to 80% consistent with it, which I thought was remarkable. Mm-hmm. And I believe I still have it saved on my phone. I might be wrong about that, but I remember sometimes you sent me your wins. Not always, but more often than not. Yeah. One time you sent me a win and you're like, I have no wins today except the fact I'm sending you this, so this is my win. And I was like, I'll take it. I'll take it. Because what we're doing there is we're explaining to the brain that no matter what we're experiencing in the moment, we can still be positive and optimistic and forward thinking. Yeah. And I want to be clear, I'm not asking you to validate me. Mm. I'm asking you, do you remember the morning intentions and evening wins, and were they useful? Were they beneficial?
They are what made me survive. You forgot the most part that you made me do. You made sure I napped.
Yes. That's
right. You made sure I napped.
Every day. That's right.
And you told me I had to do a cold plunge in the shower, which for 2 minutes, and I said, I give you 15 seconds. Yeah. And that's it. And I told you I hated it every time I sent you the win. I was like, it sucked, but I did it.
I hate this, I hate you, but I did it.
But I did it. Yeah. And then that part was because I was having a lot of nightmares. Yes. And something I'm still struggling with.
Still working through.
Yeah. But then it was pretty bad where I wasn't getting any sleep. Yeah. So after I would do my morning routine, you were like, you must sleep for, I think you told me like an hour, and I said, I'll do 20. So
I took it. I said, yes, I'll take 20. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, that has honestly become like, even though I didn't send it to you, I always had my daily intentions and my end of the day wins. And it's something that I still do.
Still. Yeah. That matters so much.
So, because that's when I lose track, it keeps me on track on where I need to go on goals. And at a minimum, some days it was just, I didn't go out to eat, and I made my food, and I journaled, and I did something towards a relationship that was positive. Then, called my family, called my grandma. So my to-dos look a little bit different now that I'm working, but it's still part of my day. And that's kind of the first thing I tell people when they're like, how did you do that? I was like, well, within the first weeks, I had an accountable partner.
Yeah, that's right. That was
told me, what are your intentions or what are your wins? If anything, it made me think about what I'm doing that day. Yeah. Instead of just crawling on the ground. But there were some days that I think you asked me once to tell me what I was grateful for and to like list out one thing that you're grateful for. Yeah. And I think I messaged you back, not in the right headspace. I'll be grateful tomorrow.
I remember that very well.
But the next day,
Yep.
I told you, okay, now I'm in the right space to tell you what I'm grateful for. But yesterday, I was not grateful for anything.
That's right.
I was angry and I was bitter and I was upset and I needed to be in those feelings. And you told me just that, be in those feelings.
Yes. And look, this is uniform across humanity. Right? I'm not implying some people are weak or strong. It's not about strength.
Yeah.
We don't like feeling uncomfortable. Our brain does not like feeling pain. So we shy away from it best we can. Don't. Sit with it.
Yeah.
Breathe through it. Be present in it. And that's how the nervous system starts to get the message that it's okay. And once we start teaching our nervous system it's okay, then the neural tags start to release their hold. You know, I have a weird question for you. Not weird, but poignant.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something that I almost hope you forgot that this happened.
Okay.
Okay. And yeah, you drink that gin. Drink that gin. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to ask you if you feel healed, and here's where I'm going to add punctuation to it. I think healing's a journey. I don't think healing is it's Tuesday. I've arrived at healing. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. We're always in process and in flow and in journey of, right? So when I say, do you feel healed? I want you to interpret that however you choose to interpret that. Okay. It doesn't have to mean fully healed. It's just, do you subjectively consider yourself healed? But I am going to tell you this. I think you might be more healed than you even realize you are, because something happened several months ago in the interactions between you and and I hope you forgot. The day it happened, I smiled so big, and I thought to myself, this girl is healed. She doesn't realize it yet. But this is an example of how far her healing journey has already started. So with that on the line, do you feel healed?
I feel more healed than I was, but I don't feel completely healed.
More to go, more in the journey.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what I think you forgot?
What?
You sent me I want to say it was a Facebook message or a text. It was probably a text one day. We had a standing scheduled call. And about 20, maybe 30 minutes before that call was meant to start, you sent me a text with a photo of you and I want to say 2 aunts. You guys were out at a carnival or some kind of outdoor gathering. And you said, hey, hope you don't mind, going to cancel today's call. I'm having a blast with my aunts. Okay. Do you understand why I say back then, when I got that text, I smiled. I'm like, this girl is so much more healed than she thinks she is. Yeah. Because you canceled a call with your support team because you were having a blast. People who are mired in their unbearable pain can't have a blast. They certainly wouldn't cancel a call. But I love the fact you did that day. Do you remember that at all?
I do.
Yeah.
But I also remember, I think it was a month before, I had called you and I was at a winery.
I remember that too, yeah.
And I felt so guilty.
I remember that too, yes. You felt so badly.
It was, I want to say January, it was February.
Yeah.
It was February and my aunts were like, hey, we want everyone, I love my family and I love my village, and everybody wanted to give me money, which I'm like, nope, I will dig myself out of this financially.
Yeah.
I just need support.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's more emotional, that's more relationships. That's what I need.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, you don't get a choice. We already bought you a plane ticket. You're coming out to a winery with me. And I was like, oh. So I went out and I was literally at the winery. They were inside. They had already poured our flights and I got on a call with you. And I'm like, I feel so guilty. Like I'm not allowed to be happy.
Yeah.
Like 2 months after
Yeah.
all of this happened, I'm not allowed to be happy. I don't have my relationships ended. I'm still healing. I still have nightmares. I'm still healing and I'm still traumatized.
Yeah.
And I feel like I shouldn't be smiling and laughing.
Yeah.
And you're like, you can. So I was like, oh, sorry,
You're alive.
I'm a crier.
It's okay, no worries.
and you gave me permission. You didn't give me permission, but you essentially were like, you know, a lot was taken.
Yes.
Don't let that be one of the things that was taken too.
That's right.
So.
You felt guilty for having a nice time and being happy.
Yeah. Like I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
And I that's that hearing someone say that out loud, because everyone looked at me and it was like survivor and victim and all these words that I don't resonate with. Yeah. And I feel like that's, you know, it was a badge that I had to just 24/7 wear. And I'm like, I need a break from that.
I don't want that today.
So it gave me permission to really just, this bad and horrible thing happened to me, and the healing is going to take days, months, years, decades.
It's going to take what it takes.
Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
I still need to enjoy the moments with the people that are pulling me into the light.
Yeah. I'm sitting here shocked for some reason that you remembered my words. Because I remember what I said. I said, he took so much from you. Don't let him take this too. Yeah.
Yeah, so that
He doesn't get to do that.
Yeah.
I think you're remarkable. I do. And I don't want to, listen, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I feel compelled to, like, in some way, somehow close this out. By the way, I should add this. I really hope you sitting here with me and having this conversation and talking about this openly and knowing that people are going to see this, I hope this is part of the journey of healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have a powerful story. And again, I've lived in the multimedia world for a while, and I don't think you have. Like, I can tell you right now, I'm going to get all kinds of messages about this and you and how amazing you are and how much Vanessa said this and it helped me with my situation. This is a beacon of change waiting to happen for people. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just like your Uber driver, if you know somebody's in a situation that perhaps was similar to yours, of course, X factors being a little different.
Yeah.
And I've generated a few through listening to you today, but if you could give them one piece of advice, what might it be?
Oh my God. Can I give him two?
Yes. Oh my God. You give them as many as you like. Are you kidding? You need to write a book at some point.
Trust your village.
Trust your village. I think that's a great piece of advice.
I am a firstborn daughter of a Hispanic family. So it is I can do anything. I don't ask help. So that was probably the biggest thing that I had to let go of just trusting my village.
Yeah.
Calling help to where I needed help. Because I didn't, and that was a big reason why I reached out to you, is because I needed that from you, because I needed my parents to be my parents.
Yeah.
And I needed my best friend to be my best friend. And I needed, my medical team to be my medical team, my lawyers to be my lawyers, but I needed someone that was just looking out for my well-being, not as a secondary position of those.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, I get that. That's beautiful. Wow.
Trust your village. And then as much as it's unfathomable, is show up for future you. Whatever you think 2 months from now look like. I wasn't even showing up for a year from now me or 3 years from now me. It was the version of me that had a car, the version of me that had a job. The version of me that had a place to live. I didn't get a place to live until about 40 days ago.
Just over a month from us sitting here right now.
Yeah.
And this was over a year ago that this all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those would probably be the two things: is trust your village, because there's no way I could have done this on my own.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, I mean, there can be a whole nother discussion of how the system that was supposed to look out for me
did not.
Completely.
I can verify that firsthand. Yes.
Essentially, one-way ticket. Good luck.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's precisely what happened.
So trust your village, and then show up for future self, because that's, and by show up for future self was, intentions and wins.
Yeah.
I want to say those are the three things that literally got me into the light and out of the hole.
Yeah.
But I still have so much more, but those are kind of like the three foundation of how I'm moving forward still.
It seems so reductionistic right now for me to say, I'm going to make sure that those 3 lessons are in the show notes so people can just read them again and again and again. And I won't sully what you just gave us brilliantly with any of my thoughts. I'll simply add this. The Buddha has taught us that the most central part of our experience is impermanence, which is nothing lasts forever. Things change, and oftentimes they change rapidly. And that the only way we get stuck into suffering is if we attach ourselves to our current circumstances and think that they're perennial. Yeah. So what you just taught us all, myself included there, is that the Buddha was right. That sometimes you have to play today for your future self. And that's all you can do because the current circumstances may suck. Yeah. But you thought forward and pulled yourself into Vanessa of March. I think that is simply the best lesson I have heard, truly. Truly. And it's been an honor to be on this journey. As small a role as I played, it's just been an honor to watch.
Played a large role.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Don't undersell.
No, I've loved watching your strength. What I didn't know before today is that your strength is actually cloaked as wisdom. You are strong. There's no question about that. But you're wise. Very, very wise. You did all the things you needed to do. That's a lot of wisdom under duress. Yeah. So let me just say this. You've earned that gin. You better finish it.
Heck yeah.
Thank you.